Welcome to Slay, the podcast where we dive into all aspects of female health, fitness, and life. I'm your host, Louise Hazel, and in today's episode, we're going to be exploring the current state of women's health. Joining us today is an amazing guest, Anne-Marie Nano, a former athlete turned personal trainer here at Slay, who's dedicated to helping women achieve their potential. With her extensive experience in both competitive sports and personal training, Anne-Marie brings a wealth of knowledge and passion to the table. Her work focuses on empowering women to overcome health challenges, achieve their fitness goals, and cultivate a positive body image. In this episode, we'll explore the current state of women's health, discussing prevalent challenges that we face, the importance of strength training, and the role that nutrition plays in overall well-being. Anne-Marie will share her insights on how to navigate societal pressures, the unique needs of women in fitness, and the strategies that she uses to motivate and support her clients. So whether you're a fitness enthusiast, someone looking to improve their overall health, or simply just interested in learning more about women's health issues, then this episode is for you. Get ready to be inspired and informed by Anne-Marie's expertise and dedication. Welcome, Anne-Marie Nano.
Thank you, Lou. It's so nice to be here.
What a pleasure.
I'm excited.
It's so nice to not be in the gym and to just be, chopping it up. Mm-hmm. It's been amazing. We've obviously only spent a little bit of time together, just, getting ready and getting the gym ready, getting our clients ready and all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. So I'm super excited to sit down today. But I want all of our viewers at home to know a little bit more about your background. So we connected must be 2-3 years ago now. Mm-hmm. And we both share a similar passion, and that passion is
track and field.
Absolutely. Tell me about your track and field career and how you grew up, participating in sports.
Totally. So, I didn't make it to the Olympics and like you did, but
unimportant.
But it's been part of my, I would say that running was my first love. I ran my first race at age 6 and thought it was the best thing ever.
Wow, that's young.
Yes, it was just pure enjoyment, no pressure, just I actually just love this thing. Mm-hmm. And then I got into other sports like basketball and soccer, a complete tomboy. And then when it got time to, for college, I had to kind of choose what sport I wanted to do. And I went with track. I did the 400-meter hurdles.
A savage event. And actually, an event that's going to be one to watch in Paris.
Yes.
We've got, obviously, Sydney McLaughlin, mm-hmm. and also the Dutch girl. What's her name?
Femke Bol. What's her
Bol.
name? Yeah.
Wow, this is going to be one to watch. This is going to be a battle of the titans.
Yes, I love that race because it's it's pure grit. Anything can happen. That last 100 meters is so painful. So it's going to be so fun to watch.
Wow. 400 hurdles. It's not for the faint-hearted.
Mm-hmm.
You've got basically the onset of lactic acid plus having to jump over barriers.
Yes.
Absolutely brutal. Now, having competed in so many sports, is there obviously, you specialized in track and field, but is there one that you still wish you were taking part in now?
I feel like this is a setup because I love basketball. Uh-huh. And that's always been one of my passions. And I think it's also fun to play a team sport too. When I first moved to LA, I didn't know anyone here. I was on my own. I joined a rec basketball team, and it's just such a fun way to build community and meet people. So I do miss it, but I'm trying to find another team to play on now.
And you've basically been working as a personal trainer. How did you transition from the world of sport into personal training? And what was the motivation behind that decision?
Yeah, well, I kind of took a bit of a hiatus. So when I finished college, I got into the retail industry in athletic apparel. Mm-hmm. And I think when I was at that age, graduating from college, I thought either you had to be a professional athlete or a physical therapist. Mm-hmm. I didn't really know what other opportunities there were within sports in careers. I also had a political science and economics degree, which didn't really tie into anything sports related. Mm-hmm. So I think by being in the athletic apparel industry, I felt I was close to it. I was interacting with people on a day-to-day, talking about health and fitness. Mm-hmm. But I was there's something within me. I was I want to be more in this world again. Mm-hmm. And that's when I left my career of 8 or so years to get into nutrition coaching, personal training. And that's what I had spent all my free time researching anyways. So even though I'm newer to this career, it's just innately what I love to do.
And a lot of the stuff you'll have applied anyway as an athlete, right? How easy was that transition for you to kind of leaving? I want to say, like, I always say the corporate world behind, because I feel like the fitness industry, while it's a corporate, you're working for large corporate entities for a lot of the time, there's much more of a, it's much more, you can be much more passionately involved. I feel like no one that dives into the fitness industry doesn't love fitness, health, sport, helping people. How has it ticked boxes for you along the way?
I think that's like what you said. You really need to like love it to like dive into it, because of course when you're working in more of a corporate job, you have a lot more security and like paid vacations, and the company really wants to keep you there because that's in their best interest. So I really had to ask myself a lot, okay, like what is it that I really love? And I was like, okay, this is checking some of my boxes, but like just being in the fitness industry is really gonna like light me up and feel like I'm fulfilling my purpose. So yeah, just connecting with people like on a day-to-day basis, helping them improve their health. Like it's so rewarding that even the things that is more challenging about this role, and even as I'm getting started and, building myself in this industry, there's challenges, of course, but at the end of the day, I remind myself, okay, like this is what I love to do. And I feel really lucky to get to do that and help people reach their goals, inspire them. And just make them feel good.
I love that. Now, you talked about those challenges. Let's go into that in a little bit more depth. Let's talk about, what is the current state of women's health? Because on the one hand, we discussed this just this week in the gym. We've seen this huge kind of uptick in clients, particularly at Slay, in their early 20s, and, everyone that has tuned in by now should know that obviously as a gym, we really focus on female strength and conditioning. So we've seen this real uptick in clients in their early 20s. But then on the flip side, we, our older clients are perhaps, having these conversations on a daily basis with their friends. Either they're, contemplating Ozempic, talking about Ozempic. They're always kind of like preoccupied with these kind of like older narratives of like just losing weight as quickly as possible, having aesthetic goals. And so I feel like, are we just, flip-flopping? Have we come forward, or where are we currently at, do you think?
I love that question because it's like multifaceted. So of course, I think, slightly older populations, they've kind of had a tough go, I feel like, because they've been told a lot of just misinformation. They've been told to eat as little as possible, just do cardio, and then realizing that doesn't work. And then there's all these diets that have come in. Like they've navigated a lot. So I think they're like tired and confused, and they want help. And they also might not be as aware of like the newer science and newer information that's coming out. So what's kind of a gift and curse of social media right now is that we have so much access to so much information, and those younger generations are starting to, get that information like, okay, like strength training, I think this could be good. I'm seeing, these celebrities do it and like people seeing results. So that's inspiring them to come in. But there's also just a lot of like still poor information out there that's not as helpful. So it's kind of like cutting through the noise, if you will, and like determining, okay, what is actually going to help me? So I think we're moving in a good direction, but just being able to like decipher what's really the most effective. So yeah, I think it's great, especially seeing those younger generations kind of tune into that.
What was the craziest or the last craziest thing you saw on social media, like by way of misinformation? Because we say there's so much out there, but what is the, like, is there something you can remember that's completely wild and you're just like, wow?
Not like a specific thing, but something I see all the time is like this kind of clickbaity sort of introduction to videos. It's like, if you're doing 3 sets of 12, you're wasting your time. If you're doing this exercise, you're ruining this. Like, it's kind of like a bit of fear mongering to get people's attention. When in reality, like everyone's so unique. Everyone's going to need different things. Like, yes, if you do 3 by 12 forever at the same weight, not wasting your time, but you're not maximizing. But it's like, it's so nuanced. So these like big blanket statements aren't really as helpful. And it's just kind of confusing people because they're like, someone's like new to the gym, like, oh, I'm doing 3 by 12. Like, should I do something else? And then they don't stick with it. So all that noise and confusion, I think, is what's really challenging right now.
Now, talking about confusion, I feel like the fitness industry has changed so much. The landscape has changed so much over the past 10 years. In what ways would, if you agree, would you say that it's changed in terms of like your own observations?
I think it's changed in a lot of positive ways in terms of like looking more like holistically. A lot of people think they need to just like work out super aggressively, like really intensely, be sweating a ton, high intensity interval training, and that's the only way to get results. But now they're learning like, oh, it actually needs to be like a balance of different things. It needs to be strength training. Yes, a little bit of HIIT, but making sure you have that recovery and you have that sleep. So I think we're like looking at the bigger picture right now, which is really beneficial. And yeah, I think that's kind of like the main positive shift that I've seen.
If you were to design like the perfect program for someone, what would that look like on a weekly basis? You've got 7 days. The thing that I love about you as a trainer is that you do take this whole holistic kind of zoomed out approach, and you love a smattering of everything. And in a way perhaps that I probably need more of, you have this really lovely kind of like air of just grace and calmness about you. Where does that come from? How do you practice? What does that bring to your training and your clients, like the way that you approach fitness? And what would that week look like if you were to be like revamp my whole schedule?
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. I feel the same about you, of just this confidence and this air about you as well. And it's one thing it depends for each person. I would say like my dad's a scientist, and every time I asked him a question when I was a kid, he would always say, it depends, and then kind of give an answer. So of course it depends, but I would say definitely strength training 2 to 3 times per week kind of is the minimum. 1 time a week, you're kind of just maybe maintaining, you're not really seeing any progress. Zone 2 cardio is really big right now, of cardio where you're not like at that super high intensity, where you can still hold a conversation. So that can be a few sessions per week, kind of split up how you like, maybe like 150 minutes or so. I always like to also understand the client that's in front of me too. It's like, what do they enjoy doing and what do they like doing? Because if they don't enjoy and they don't like it and they don't want to do it, it's not sustainable. So it's like getting in that conversation. But yeah, be getting curious of like, okay, what zone 2 activities do you like doing? Also think some like higher intensity sprinkled in there. It doesn't need to be an hour long. It can even be like at an end of a lifting session, jumping on a fan bike, doing some intervals. That can really get your heart rate up. I think it's so rare that we really get to those higher heart rate zones for the majority of us. I think there's like a stat about like 90% of people over 30 like won't ever sprint again. I don't know.
We were literally crying in the gym last week, weren't we?
Yeah.
But also I think about the 90% of people that are saving their hamstrings. But then I also think about the 90% of people who are like almost saying goodbye to their childhood athlete. So I feel like that, for me, I feel there's one thing that we could be changing, right? There's no reason why, all right, max flat out balls to the wall sprinting, you're going to run the risk of hurting yourself.
Yes.
But if you stay in touch with that once a week, do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like how much are we kind of like really pushing ourselves, and what are we telling ourselves we can't do because we're aging?
Yes.
So interesting.
Yes, I would say aging. I think it's definitely a mindset.
What about breath work? What are your thoughts? I know that you are kind of a big supporter and proponent of breath work. Where would that factor in? If I'm a person who wants to get fitter, wants to get stronger, like where would you kind of put that into someone's programming, and why?
Yeah. No, I think especially for women, I don't know if we just tend to have more anxiety or more stress. I don't know if that's legitimate or true, but
just more responsibility.
I think so. And like, especially a lot of clients that I work with, and I'm sure that you work with as well, are very motivated. They're super successful. They have these like really big jobs, so much that they have to do, and they're kind of running like at like a mile a minute. Like they have so much on their plate. And when we look at like stress, there's like they say there's good stress and bad stress. There's the stress of working out, there's stress of like a cold shower or something like that. When it's in small doses, it's good and you have the ability to recover. But when you have that like low level stress at all times, when you're overthinking everything, when you're just, have emails popping up. I always see a lot of people that have notifications on their like watch just vibrating, and it's never getting that sense of like, like we're okay. I feel like that's where breath work really comes in. Even before like meeting you today, of course, I wanted to show up as my best self. So I was like, I'm going to do a little bit of breath work just to like
talk us through. What did you do, Anne-Marie?
It's really simple. It doesn't need to be anything really complicated. In order to kind of bring your heart rate down, you can focus more on extending the exhale. So I could like breathe in for 4 seconds, maybe hold at the top for a few, and then exhale for like 6 to 8 seconds. And just doing that like for like 5 minutes can be really great. There's another technique where you do a double inhale and then an exhale, where you do a full breath in and then a little sip of air. And then exhale it out.
That's really interesting because I remember I used to hate running the 800 meters as an Olympic athlete.
Yes.
And the only thing that would help keep me regulated from an emotional perspective was my breathing pattern. And I distinctly remember my breathing pattern being two breaths in and one long breath out. It was a...
Yeah.
And when I would start to get, a greater level of anxiety, perhaps as you go through the bell and you've got a whole other lap left, that would be the time when I would really, really focus internally on that breath, because there's so many things whizzing in your mind and, someone's perhaps just come past you and you're running for the gold. So it's really interesting to think how, as an elite athlete, we're not necessarily given those tools, but we... cultivate them and strategize as a strategy for ourselves to use. So we kind of find the things that work just by default.
Yes.
So that's
wonderful.
I
love that. Oh, the 800, the bell at the 800.
Oh my God, gives me PTSD even now. So we talked obviously about, the landscape over, the past decade. What positive improvements would you say that you've seen emerging in more recent times in women's health?
I think the distinction between men and women don't operate the same. Of course, there's, way more studies have been done on men than in women in health and fitness. So we're starting to kind of learn that, like, hey, just because that works for like, Andrew Huberman, it doesn't mean that it works for us too. I mean, he has great things to share and I love him, but I've been focusing a lot more on like menstrual cycle and how our hormones are fluctuating and really like leaning into that a bit more. And just, understanding that we're different and we have different needs. I think that's been a really great like transition and development that I've seen.
Has there been any kind of studies that you've seen come out that you feel like women need to be extremely like aware of? Is there anything that you feel is, that has been a huge development in science that's like, oh yeah, we actually thought this was good for women, but it turns out it's really not that beneficial?
Right. It's funny. Intermittent fasting is one of those things where I've yet to like make a decisive opinion on yet. Some people are saying that it's, better in certain parts of the menstrual cycle and at times not. I know there's a book out called Up to Speed, and it's all about women in health and fitness. And the author, I think I forget her name, Christine, I have to double check her name. But she talks a lot about women just under fueling. So we've been given this narrative of just, eating less is ideal, when really a lot of us are just malnourished, not getting enough energy to support all these activities that we want to be doing. So I think it's just like, changing that narrative and like changing the way that we look at food as fuel and, all the different vitamins and minerals that we need from it and how it helps us feel our best. Yeah.
So Anne-Marie, with your experience with your clients, for the people at home, if they suspect that they're perhaps not getting enough fuel, what have you seen when training women? Like, what are the symptoms that are typically, giving you the telltale signs that they might be in a low energy state like you described?
Well, part of it would just be not seeing results. If they're not building muscle, if they're coming in 2 to 3 times per week, doing the work, thinking that they're eating well, perhaps getting enough sleep, and they're still not seeing results, like that could be something to dive into a little bit more. Just like seeing their energy levels in general, like how are they recovering? Are they still feeling really sore afterwards? Are they just when I look at them between like sets, like are they awake and with it? So yeah, those are some of the ways that I can tell.
Yeah, it's been really interesting, obviously, running a predominantly female gym. I can always, we do have our emergency bananas in the fridge, because if there's one thing that we're likely to see with female population, it's that low energy state, for some reason, cutting all carbohydrates out of the diet, or not, preparing for their workout, and getting perhaps a little bit of breakfast or something in their system. And so we always keep on hand that just little quick piece of energy, half a banana, to bring people back to life, because it's so common. At least probably once a week, I'll be able to look around the gym and see who's performing and who's like, nodding off or bonking or just having a really hard time catching their breath. And a lot of the times we sometimes think, oh, I'm so unfit. But actually, I feel like, if we gave the body exactly what it needs to get through the session, then we would be able to meet the demands of that session much easier.
I love that you said that, because I think that's a narrative that we put on ourselves a lot. It's like, I'm not good enough. I'm not able to do this. And we automatically just like are really hard on ourselves. I mean, I'm speaking for myself, but maybe others as well, that we're so quick to just blame ourselves, or like, I should be able to do more. I should be able to work harder, versus like maybe taking a step back and be like, okay, how am I fueling myself?
Am I have breakfast?
Am I setting myself up for success?
Yeah.
Like,
am I just running on coffee at this point?
Yes.
Yeah, interesting. And I've seen it pretty much, change within a week, 7 days, if that, of just getting clients to just come in and have breakfast before their workout. And remarkably, but also not remarkably at all, they feel stronger. Yes. They're able to push more. They're able to pull more. They feel like way more connected to their bodies, way less brain fog, and they're outperforming themselves. And breakfast, who thought? How new. What's the single biggest challenge do you feel that is holding women back from improving their health and fitness and living better lifestyles?
I would say probably 2-part. One part would be mindset, and one part would be trying to do too much too quickly.
Oh, talk us through that.
So I see this really often, and I think it's just human nature where we want to see results quickly.
Immediately.
Yes.
Yesterday.
Instant gratification. I think it ties into a lot of like, we order something online, it comes very quickly. So we want quick results in the gym. And I think it's great that we have these big goals and we want to change and we want to do all these things. But the challenge is when you try to do too much too quickly, it's not sustainable. And I mean, maybe if you're David Goggins, you can like push through and like be really disciplined and white knuckle things. But if you can only do it for a week or 2 and then you fall off, it's not really going to help you in the long run. So I like to use more of a like easing into it approach and think about, hey, could I do this thing for the next like month, 2 months, like a year? Is this like something that actually works with my schedule? Because if you're like sacrificing sleep to get up really early to come to the gym and there's no way that you can go to bed earlier, like losing an hour of sleep, multiple times a week is not going to be helpful or sustainable. So, it's like changing our mindset around that. I think there's been a lot of like, is it 80? What's a hard 50?
90 hard, is it?
I can't remember what it is, but it's something where you do it for a certain number of days and you do all these workouts and all these things. And it's such an all or nothing approach when in reality, like life is not like that. Like even if you plan to do a workout and then something comes up, instead of just being like, okay, screw it, I'm not doing anything, be like, I have 20 minutes right now. Can I just do this little exercise? Can I, walk around the block? Like, just like being a little bit more agile with it. And when you have more like longer term goals, like you can make those tweaks, and then it becomes so much more of your lifestyle versus like, I'm just going to do this thing for 30 days and see what happens. Because again, it won't last.
So would you say that the all or nothing mentality is something that we're leaving in the past, or do you feel like it's still super prevalent today?
I think it's still pretty prevalent. Unfortunately so. And I wouldn't say it's like a bad thing. Like for some people, like doing a lot quickly might help them see results, and they might feel good from working out and then be like, okay, actually, like I do really like this. This is going to work. And then they might taper off a bit, but they stick with it. So there's like perhaps a time and a place for it. But I think we just need to really educate people, and especially women, of just like creating like healthy lifestyle habits. It doesn't sound like as exciting, but like just changing like one or two things each day, doing it consistently, it's kind of a snowball effect from there. And then you kind of look back in a couple months, you're like, wow, actually like I achieved this goal and I wasn't completely stressed out about it the whole time. Like it actually felt easier.
Absolutely. You know, I was having a really good chat with one of my clients today in the gym, Sam. And, you know, I've probably mentioned this on the podcast before, but I'm going to reiterate it again. I really believe that we as women need to understand that our body and as humans, we go through seasons. And I feel like there is a season to challenge yourself, commit to something. And then there are seasons for maintaining. And then there are seasons for pulling back and perhaps prioritizing other things. And I think that the key, you know, I said to Sam today is understanding what season you're in and being okay with it. And so allowing your body to have these peaks and troughs, and, you know, your journey to have these peaks and troughs where you can be more committed, perhaps more disciplined, perhaps give it more intensity, perhaps focus on more load. And, you know, in other seasons, it might be a season of rest. And it might just be allowing the body to recover, regenerate, rebuild. And I think that we've unfortunately gotten to this place in society where we are being bombarded with so much information all the time, whether it be from television devices, just overall media, that we think that we should also be operating at that speed every single day as well. And, you know, life isn't like that. It's not even like that for the best athletes in the world. You know, if we take, for example, the Paris Olympics that are coming up, that are going to be blasted across our screens, you know, 2 weeks after, you know, the Olympic Games has finished, a lot of those athletes are going to shut down for 4 weeks and do no exercise whatsoever. They're going to go on vacation. It might be for like 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 2 weeks. And that's going to be their season of rest. And I feel like if elite athletes can do that for themselves, why can't general population be, you know, have that, give themselves that grace?
I love that.
Let's talk about strength training for women. Has that always been a part of your own training, or is it something that you've, you know, come to depend on and focus on as a trainer?
It has always been a part. When I was in college and competing in track, I got injured from strength training. I feel like
What happened?
I was doing 1 rep max of my deadlift. And I think I was so new to training at that time. My form wasn't probably great. I know I was working with a coach at the time, but I was using my back more than like my glutes and my legs. So that really inspired me to like hone in on like how to have the best form. And I think I don't want to give the message that strength training is not safe, because it is, especially when you're working with a coach. I think that's a key piece of it is it
can be. I just want to jump in real quick and say, any coaches out there working with an athlete, a client doing 1 rep max deadlifts, why? I can think back to my career as, you know, an Olympic track athlete. The deadlift is an exercise where I think you're going to run a much higher risk of lower back issues just in general. So if there's women out there that are being pressured to do 1 rep max lifts in the deadlift with very little background in lifting, just say no. A bit like drugs back in the 80s. Just say no. You know, you can get close to that level of strength, but as I'm listening, I'm just like, eek. Oh gosh, I just wish that, there was someone there who had the discernment to think, well, what are you actually going to be gaining from this,
Yeah. But I think it ends up being a helpful thing because it inspired me to like, okay, like really focus on the details. Like when I work with my clients, I'm like, I'm not obsessive, but I'm like, I'm going to give them a lot of different cues, asking them lots of questions. Okay, where are you feeling that? Like, what did you notice? Like, just so to make sure. And it's not in an obsessive way, but it's just to like really support their experience. So yeah, strength training is like, I think, like you said, I've gone through seasons with it. I think it helps when you have like a strong foundation of like muscle mass. You can like, I can go periods where I'm just like lifting maybe once a week and just sort of in like a maintenance phase. Cause sometimes I don't enjoy strength training as much, even as someone who that's my job. Sometimes I can get, I'll just feel like I want to just be running or something. If I've had like a really long day and I'm like, I don't feel like I can focus. I'm like, I'm just going to go for a run instead. And like, catering it to how I'm feeling and not being super rigid with it. But I just think it's so foundational. I mean, there's like so much science now on strength training, especially for women, as they're getting older, because, as we age, we lose muscle mass at a slow rate, but we still do. So the way we combat that is to strength train. And I kind of look at it as like investing your money like in the stock market. Because if you just leave your money, in your bank, it essentially devalues with inflation.
Great
so
analogy.
if you're not strength training, you're losing that muscle. So you need to invest in yourself. You need to invest, in strength training to maintain that muscle and, even build it as you get older.
I was looking at some, statistics about the way in which female health kind of declines with age. And it basically said that data from the 2020 National Health Survey said that that basically physical activity amongst women was at 20%. 20% of women in 2020 were getting the average amount of exercise recommended by the physical activity guidelines. 28% of men, and that decreases with age. So when we talk about strength training for women, what would you say to those women who are in their 50s, 60s, thinking about getting into exercise, perhaps already doing exercise, but not yet taking part in strength training?
Yeah, just to encourage them to definitely just start to, I would say, like, if you can, getting a coach, getting support, like, you're not meant to just know how to do this on your own. I think a lot of people think they need to be just like naturally good at, exercise in order to do it. Be like, oh, I never was an athlete before. I was hated running. I'm really big into just like the growth mindset. Like I was telling you before we started recording that I'm learning how to sing.
Love that.
Even though I'm like, I have no goals to be a singer.
Can't wait for the concert.
Oh my gosh. And it was like, I was just saw myself like, I'm not good at singing, but it's like, we can learn to be good at things. Like each week I get a little bit better. I get a little bit more confident. And the same thing with strength training. Even if you've never done it before, even if you've not been athletic, it's like never too late. And you can get better and you can like start to enjoy it. And I think the key thing is like finding a community. We're such like, community oriented, like, and like having that group of people that are also supporting you and making it fun. Like if it's just, you showing up by yourself, it's, harder to stick with it for most people. So getting that support, at least at the beginning, so you know how to do the, different lifts and it's safe. And then, just going from there.
One of the things that I absolutely love about women's weight training is the fact that progressive overload, it's completely underrated. Because every single week you can basically improve, week on week, month on month, you can actually see those weights going up. And I absolutely love that. One of our most recent members to the Slay Gym, she didn't believe she was strong at all. She's an absolute rock solid powerhouse. Liz, I'm talking to you if you're watching. Liz is one of our lovely, lovely ladies down at Slay. And she was like, no, I'm not strong. By the time Liz had completed her second week at Slay, she'd cleaned up the first row of dumbbells. She'd started at like £5 because I believed her. I was like, okay, maybe she's not strong. Let's start here. By the time she'd already got through 10 reps of like £5, I was like, we're literally wasting our time. This is like a warm up for Liz. She was on to like £15 and still not really super challenged.
Wow.
She's got no idea. And I think the interesting thing, if you've never done weight training before, is you actually have zero idea how strong you really are. And so in your mind, your perception of your own strength might be, I've never done this before, so I'm going to be terrible. But until you do it, you might be an absolute brick shit house.
Yeah.
You just don't know.
And what I love about that is like, think about that, what that's doing for her confidence. And like outside the gym, like I always see like the gym is like a parallel of like life. Like when you can do something intentionally challenging, and really push yourself, you have this confidence. You're like, oh wait, I can do other things, or like, I don't need my partner to grab the groceries. Like I got this. Like,
let's talk about that. Let's talk about those societal pressures and the body image issues that we are super prevalent, that we're always talking about in the gym. Just today, one of my clients was talking about, she goes to train with her two friends in New York, two guys, and they said to her, oh, I'll get the weights for you. She's like, guys, I got these. What, you're going to lift the 30 pounds? She's like, yeah, I'm going to lift the 30s. So like, is society still putting pressure on us to conform to a certain type of training? Are body issues still a thing for women? What are the ways in which society and those things are holding us back?
Ooh, that's a big question. I think there's kind of always going to be that societal pressure, especially with just, again, social media and everything like that. We're going to be constantly comparing. And I think the key is to like ideally limit that comparison and just focus on you. There's like all these examples of Miley Cyrus performing, everyone talking about her arms and that she did Pilates. So Pilates must be the answer. And even like Lori Harvey a couple of years ago, how fit she got. And I also think about,
she mentioned she did Pilates as well. Can we talk about this? Because at the time the Slade podcast wasn't live and me and my good friend were in Mexico. And she was like, have you seen Lori Harvey? She was showing me these pictures. I was like, damn, girl, looks good. And she said, I was on a 1,250 calorie diary and I was doing Pilates. Now, here's a few things that I want you guys to know. A 1,250 calorie diet for Lori Harvey represents a calorie deficit. So she's going to be shedding a lot of excess body fat. With her type of build, the fact that she's doing Pilates is perhaps helping her to maintain that lean muscle mass. It's not necessarily going to be adding lean muscle mass. That her body type was primed to come out on that red carpet and look absolutely banging, but doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get the same results with that method.
Yes.
And so this is something that I think has been really interesting very, lately when we talk about body image issues and societal pressures. Pilates has really kind of taken over our mainstream as our go-to kind of fitness, method. But the reality of it is, for whom? And what results, what are you trying to achieve? And I think that people are doing it with this mindset of achieving what's been touted around now as the Pilates body, which to me is absolute shite. Like, I've never heard so much rubbish in my whole life. And that's not to say that I don't believe in Pilates. I think it's a wicked method for conditioning. And a lot, I think, of our basic training as athletes would have been centered around a lot of those movement patterns. But that's not to say I'm not saying it's the only way to achieve results, but for the majority of people, if you're not getting results with Pilates, it's time to look at some other methodologies.
And what I would say also about like when you look at certain people like Lori, I think we forget like she's an athlete. Like riding horses is not easy. She already probably had that muscle mass.
Yeah.
And then it's just like losing a little bit of body fat, for a short period of time, like eating not very many calories. Like I think that could work for a short period. If it's continual, then that's a whole nother story. And I'll say I am a big Pilates fan, but in combination with other things. I think I actually work with a lot of people who have done Pilates and then come into strength training. And what I love about working with them is they have a really good like body awareness, mind to muscle connection. They'll go nice and slow through the movement. They'll pair their breath with it. So I think it builds a lot of really great fundamental like movement patterns and things like that, and translates well to strength training. But I think they need to work hand in hand in tandem.
Absolutely agree. Talk to me about the moment where you knew that you could not go back to not being a trainer. Does that make sense? Like, was there a moment where you were working with one of your clients and you were like, oh, this is why I do this?
I think it's like when you've helped someone like reach a specific goal, or just, when they've changed their mindset. I've had like people write me cards and they're like, I've, learned to look at my body in a different way. I have so much more confidence. I helped the client get ready for her wedding, and she met her goal and felt so good about it. And the whole process was like, slow and steady. She felt good. She felt like her best self. And just like having those moments with those people feels so special. Because of course, as it's about, aesthetics and things like that, but there's like so much more, like you know this as well. It's like aesthetics might bring someone in, but what like keeps people in fitness is like how they feel, the connections that they make, the endorphins, like just, how they show up in the world. Like there's so many like benefits to it. So like when people see that and experience it, and like, you're like, yes, it just, it feels so good.
What do you say to anyone that's having like, the opposite, like the severe like body image issues, getting in their head about the way they look, the way they feel, their number on the scale? Like, how do you keep those clients motivated and supported?
Yeah, no, it's tough. I always tell my clients, like, it's okay to have aesthetic goals. It's good. But also like learning to love yourself in the process, which is easier said than done. That takes a lot of like inner work. So try to like limit anything that doesn't make you feel good on your social media feed, like muting that type of stuff. I often get my clients to take a break from the scale for a while because that doesn't paint the full picture. So I try to find a way to make them enjoy the process, like figuring out what they like about movement, what other exercises can they do like outside the gym. And lost my train of thought there.
That's all right. I recently introduced you to the Slay Fitness Challenge. We're talking about non-scale victories. And I actually remember putting the whole team through that little day where, I took you through those 3 events. What did you think of that? Will you be using it with your clients as well?
I might, but what I love about that is like, having other metrics that's not just the scale to see progress, because it's so motivating when you can see like gaining a little bit more muscle mass or throwing a ball a little bit farther. Like you can see like, oh, like I am getting better like week over week. So having those little wins and just being like really like encouraging of people, like you're coming in, you're showing up, like that in itself is a win. Like if that's the first thing you do that morning, you're probably going to have a better day because you've started it like doing something hard, and then you have that confidence to bring into everything else that you do.
And doing something for yourself.
Yes.
Anne-Marie, what does the future of women's health look like in your opinion?
Ooh. I'm optimistic. I feel like there's a lot of really great information coming out. I feel like movement is becoming more of like what we do with friends and becoming more of our culture. We have a long way to go, but I'm feeling hopeful that if we start with like habits, doing just small things day by day, that we can really start to see change that way.
I love that. Anne-Marie, are you ready for our game? Today, we've got a quick fire round. We've got 11 topics to get through.
Okay.
And the game is going to be called Slay or Nay. So slay, if you're like all about it, that's my shit.
Oh my gosh.
Nay, obviously, if not. Now you're Canadian, right?
Yes.
So isn't that, do you just say nay? Is that how you say no or what? Because I feel like they say e.
We say
me.
A, but no, I don't.
Oh, I always thought it'd be like e, me.
No, not on the West Coast, maybe on the East Coast.
Maybe I just made that shit.
The West Coast and East Coast are a little bit different with Canada.
Excellent. How do they say slay in Canada? Slee?
No, I feel like Canadians, I feel like we can be like disguised as Americans. Like it doesn't really, no one will really tell until I say like process or something or pasta.
Yeah.
But it's like we're incognito.
You're under the radar.
Yeah.
Until now. Okay, slay or nay. Let's go, Anne-Marie. Number 1, low energy availability.
Nay.
Number 2, kettlebells.
Slay.
Love that. Number 3, HIIT training.
Slay.
Number 4, keto diets.
Nay. Nay for me.
Excellent. Number 5, Pilates.
Slay.
Number 6, overtraining.
Nay.
Number 7, undertraining.
Nay.
Number 8, Barry's boot camp.
Ooh. In small doses, slay.
I knew this one would stump you. Excellent. Number 9, protein powder.
Well, yeah, slay. Within the right amount.
Number 10, calorie counting.
That can either be a slay or a nay, depending on the person.
It depends.
It depends.
Number 11, Weight Watchers.
Nay. Not nay. I forgot that was still around.
Yeah, it's still going.
They might have changed their weight. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Hopefully not the future of women's fitness. But Anne-Marie, thank you so much for joining us on the Slay podcast. Absolute pleasure to have you. I can't wait for 6 a.m. when we get together tomorrow morning.
Oh, thank you, Lou. This was so fun.
God bless you. Excellent. That concludes this episode of Slay. Stay tuned for more empowering discussions on female health, fitness, and life. You can follow me at Louise Hazel on social media, and you can follow Anne-Marie at Annie Nano. That's ANNIENANO. You can check out the Slay brand now at Slay Athletic, and don't forget to subscribe to the Slay podcast if you haven't done so already on YouTube, and leave us a review. You can also get all of our online workouts from the Slay app. You can download that now for free from the App Store and join our online community.